I sort of said to the producer and the cameraman, I said, look, like, I want to do a good job. So I'm up for anything. Like, whatever you put your rookies through, like, serve it up. So, of course, there was the let's go to one of the wet markets and you can eat something weird challenge.
Oh.
And so,
I mean, after the last couple of years, that's a tougher challenge than perhaps it was even 3 years ago. Would you like to try this bat, sir? Miss Pangolin.
I had watched some like old episodes on Getaway on YouTube and stuff, and I saw I think I saw someone eating like a cricket or something like that. I'm like, I can eat a cricket. Yeah. So we went to this market in Cambodia, and there was a choice of cockroaches, deep fried cockroaches, deep fried tarantulas, or deep fried baby birds. So like, just basically looked like still had their heads and claws, their talons and stuff like that. So
so before you say what you did, I would do the cockroach. So feels snacky to me.
Like, all right, before you settle on the cockroach, let me describe the sizings of things. So the baby birds are actually small.
Yeah, like I don't like the idea of eating like a baby anything.
Okay.
So that the baby bird rules that out. I mean, I know that like people eat birds already, like chicken and turkey and all those things are birds, but the idea of eating like a baby anything I'm not into that. So no baby bird.
Okay. So then slightly smaller, but not that much smaller, were the cockroaches. So they were about 1.5 inches. They were big cockroaches. And then the tarantula was probably about 3 times the size of the cockroach. And the one thing I thought when I saw them was like, well, at least they're deep fried, so they won't resemble what they are.
That would have been my thought as well. If you deep fry something enough, then you won't know. But I assume they still look like the things that they are.
They look like a more nightmarish version of that thing.
Yeah. So I don't want to eat a deep fried baby bird that looks like a baby bird. No, thank you very much.
Looks like if Freddy Krueger was a bird, that's what it looked like. But I said to them, look, if you want good TV, I said, I'm actually a little arachnophobic. Like I don't dig on spiders. And so they said, cool, that's definitely what we're going to shoot then. And so we were going around just grabbing little things at the market, but I spotted where we were going to end up. And I was not prepared for like just how big tarantulas are and how like they're still alive they look. Like they've got all their limbs, even little sort of bits of hair on them and stuff. And so there's 2 things going on in my mind. One is like I'm getting a bit of the heebie-jeebies, and not like a panic attack, but I'm like, oh, is there a cool exit strategy for this if I've changed my mind? Like I've already said that I'm up for anything, and like I don't want to lose face. But is there a way to exit the situation which doesn't make me look like a complete wimp?
No. Would be my answer. Absolutely no. You've committed to this. You've said yes. You know, it's like going on I'm a Celebrity, get me out of here or something. You know that at some stage this is what you've signed up for. Dick.
Yeah. Not just, I mean, you may eat someone else's dick. I've never watched I'm a Celebrity, but I'm assuming both dick eatings are done. Are they? I don't know. Do people hook up on I'm a Celebrity? I mean, maybe not.
They're out in the jungle not washing. You'd have to be pretty desperate, I suppose.
You're right. Who's hooking up with there's no bloody soap?
It would be great, though, if they were just like, okay, you've got 2 choices in this situation. You can eat this donkey dick or you can eat Danny Green's dick.
with the donkey, the donkey's dick at least would be clean, right? Because they've cooked it, they've cleaned it and cooked it, or is it like a jungle donkey dick?
Well, yeah, no. From what I see on those shows, I feel like they make it as gross as they possibly can make it. As long as it's not going to kill the person. But from what I hear, like they're happy to upset your stomach and like have like diarrhea for 3 days and like vomit up and stuff like that. So they're not. Yeah, they're just.
Well, no one told me that.
Yeah,
no,
I don't think Getaway would be doing that because Getaway's trying to entice people to go on a holiday. I'm a Celebrity, get me out of here is not trying to get people to like go on a holiday in the jungle.
But this particular segment, it was the same thinking, which is let's get someone on TV to do something they're not comfortable with, and that'll be fun. every time I used to watch like shows like Fear Factor or I think there was other ones where they would, eating bugs was like a challenge, or drinking snake wine. And I'm always like, how is that like fear related? It's more gross. Like I don't associate fear and being grossed out as being the same thing, but I get it now because like the idea of eating this bug activated like, fear in me. So we went over to the basket, and so this is all on camera. And so they're saying, look, we just want your absolute natural reaction. So just, tell us about how you feel about spiders and all that kind of stuff. And I was with a guide as well, Lovi, who was like, talking me through the history of it. And the reason, it's actually, it's steeped in kind of tragedy, the reason why this is street food. And it has to do with the Khmer Rouge. And, when people were desperate and starving and, living in the jungle, they were so desperate that they would just eat whatever protein they could get their hands on. So there's an element of like, yeah, this is like all fun and stuff, but you don't want to be disrespectful of why this is a food, oh, how this is so disgusting. How can you know? No, that's not it. That's not an option. But in my head, I'm like, this is disgusting. I don't want to eat this, right? So I put it in, I ask Lovi, I say like, how was this normally done? Like, do you pluck the legs off?
Yeah, that's right. That's good. I'm glad that you actually thought to ask that. Like, and is there a way? Is there a way that they normally eat it?
Well, interesting you should say that because he said, no, just like, just stick it in your mouth, start at the legs and eat your way through. And so I did. And look, it's actually was not as, I thought it was going to be a lot sort of like chunkier because they're thick huntsmen. But what it actually tasted like was beef jerky, just like dry protein, a little bit of gristly, but really dry. Like it was sort of hard to swallow. They'd obviously put spices and stuff on it, but clearly, I always made the joke that you deep fry anything and cover it in like sugar or salt. It's edible, but yeah, and there's some things that are a bit tougher than others. But the worst part was the legs, because it's a spider's legs. They're designed to cling to things. So as you're swallowing the legs, you can, it feels like it is crawling down your throat because you're just getting these little prickly legs. So I was going through that, and then I got to the abdomen, which is really tough, and got through that.
Does anything squirt? Is there any like?
No, that's what I mean.
It's
like
all dry.
Beef jerky.
There's nothing inside that like. Because
no secret surprise.
I'd be happier with it all being like dry and gristly than I would with something at some stage popping. I don't think like when I watch those things when they eat an eye or something like that, and then it like the eyeball pops, and it's that's too much for me. But if I knew that it was all just going to be dry and gristly, I think I'd be more comfortable with that.
Yeah. So, well, actually, and you're right, because once I sort of realized the texture of it wasn't squishy, because I just didn't want to taste any, I don't know, like, I don't know the anatomy of a spider, like web spinners or guts or any shit like that, but it wasn't. So I got that take down, and then this is a bit of like, behind the scenes, had to do a second take because they wanted to get a closer angle on it. So I actually ended up eating 2 spiders, but I was okay with it by that stage.
And then they were like, oh, actually, something happened in that one.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
You've got to eat one more spider.
Like Kubrick, 100 takes later. Yeah, we think we got it. So then later on, so we're on this cruise ship. So
now, can I ask you this? Sorry, before we move on from the eating of the.
No, this is still within the spider.
Okay, cool. Yeah. But I want to know, with the second spider, was it easier to eat the second spider once you knew what it was going to be like, or was it harder because you'd already eaten this? You were full from eating a spider.
It was easier because I just chewed like crazy. The first time I'm trying to talk. And entertain and convey the feeling of what it's like. The second time, I'm just like, I'm going to shove this in.
I'm just going to eat the spider.
But it was like, I did drink about 2 liters of water after that because I'm like, I can still feel the legs inside my throat. So back on the cruise ship that we were traveling up the Mekong on, they would change the menu each day and to reflect, whatever part of Cambodia or Vietnam you're in. So you're getting these like delicious sort of regional dishes. But one lunch they had like a bowl of tarantulas, but then they had cockroaches and crickets and silkworms, like every bug under the sun. And I was talking to
I've eaten a cricket,
right?
Because that's a bit of a trend, like because if you're vegetarian, apparently crickets don't count, like they're insects.
Okay,
you're allowed to...
Are the crickets cool with that?
Well, I don't think anyone's asked the crickets, but apparently that's the new sustainable way.
Well, we asked them, and ironically, all we heard was
crickets.
crickets.
So they were fine with it. No, I mean, as a comedian, I felt like they're the natural enemy of comedians. So I was like, fuck you guys. I guess it's because they're sustainable, right? Like the idea is there are so many of them that they're a sustainable way of having protein. And I tried them and they seemed quite edible, like crickets, I've got to say. Just they felt very like any sort of, what's that, like a white bait or a shrimp or like, you know, something like that. They had that same sort of texture.
They're quite small too, so you can throw like a handful in.
Yeah. By the way, so was there any after effects, like on your digestion of eating the...
No.
Okay.
And I also did not acquire...
spider powers? That was going to be my follow-up question. I was waiting, so I didn't seem too silly, but I was like, since then, have you got any spidey senses?
But I got anatomically accurate spider powers, so I can shoot silk out of my ass.
Oh, okay.
But it's made travel really, really
You're
awkward.
terrified of your own reflection.
That's right. So I was like, you know what? I'm not going to have this any more spider bit. I wussed out on the cockroach. I'll try that. And I was slightly smaller. And so I ate the cockroach, and it was 10 times worse than the spider. It was actually everything I imagined a cockroach would taste like. And you know how you're like, oh, I'd hate the squish? Yeah, there was a squish.
There was squish, okay.
So I busted through the shell and the wings and got to the squish, and that was just horrifying. But at the end of all that, one of the local like chefs who prepared lunch came up and said, oh, you know, you had this. And I said, yeah. And we did some street food at the market. And he said, so did you eat the abdomen of the spider? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, oh, well, I wouldn't do that. and he's like, and did you eat the shell on the cockroach as well? I'm like, yeah. And he's like, oh, no, you just meant to scoop out like the inside. So it's like, I don't know if I've actually had the accurate experience or if like, you know, you gave me a cheeseburger and I ate it with a paper still on top, you know, like I don't. To see the full video, join our Patreon.
Patreon.com/Tofop.